Welcome back to MX5 Info. This video is about programming keys to the NC Miata and other models from Mazda and Ford that use the PATS, the passive anti-theft system, to check whether the car can be started or should be blocked by the immobilizer. You might ask, why would I be programming keys? Well, first reason could be that you only have one key with the car and you want a second key or a third key, so you want additional keys. The second reason could be that you want to swap the ECU because your current ECU does not have cruise control, for example. So the 1.8 NC1 in Europe did not come with cruise control, so you could use the ECU from an NC2 or NC3 for the 1.8. Or you have a modified ECU, that's also an alternative. Or another reason might be that you want to start using an NC2 instrument cluster, so you could also have the ambient temperature and the fuel economy displayed in the trip computer. This trip computer is prepared for it, but nothing is connected, but it is enabled. So those are three reasons why you would like to program keys to the combination of an ECU and the instrument cluster. When looking at the NC Miata keys, you will find different versions. In this case we have a 4-button switch, but there are also keys with 3 buttons. Some may have one red button on it, but they share a lot of things in common. It is a flip key, so you have the key blade that is cut to the locks of the car, and inside the head or the front of the key you will find this small transponder chip, and this is also one of those transponder chips. Then you have the remaining part, which is basically the key fob for the remote control, the remote access to the car. It has a housing, the buttons, this rubber part, electronics, and a battery to power the electronics. So we will not be looking at this key fob part. We will not be cutting any key blades, but we will be working with the other technology that is using this chip. This is a 4D63 chip, and then the key fob is using either 315 megahertz frequency, that is for the US, or 433 megahertz for Europe. I'm not sure what it is for the other regions. Let me quickly explain the setup that I have in front of me. I have a 12-volt power supply that I can use to power the ECU and the instrument cluster. I use this switch as the ignition switch. Then I have an OBD2 port on which I have connected an OBD2 adapter. In this case it's one from VX Diag, the VCX Nano, but you could also use a different one that has a switch for medium speed and high speed OBD2. Then here I have the controls that are normally on the steering wheel if you have cruise control. We will not be needing that today, but it's part of the setup. And then I have the antenna coil that normally goes around the ignition switch. But in this case, for me, it's easier to do it without using a real ignition lock, because it allows me to program more keys, and I can use a switch when I need to switch on the ignition. And then we have the ECU connected. So the ECU and the instrument cluster can communicate via the CAN bus, and also the communication with the OBD2 port goes via the CAN bus protocol. This antenna coil is connected to the instrument cluster only with 2 wires, and that is because the immobilizer function lives inside this instrument cluster, and that's why this immobilizer LED is blinking now and again, because the ignition is on but there's no key in front of the coil. For the cars with keyless entry it's different. If you have these cards as keys, then there's a separate module with the immobilizer function in it, and It is separate because that module also uses a wide variety of antennas inside the car. I think it's up to 10 antennas in that case. So it's not comparable. So this video is purely about programming keys on cars that do not have the advanced keyless entry. During this video I will be using FORScan running on my Windows laptop, and I will capture the screens while I'm doing the demo. The first step is to turn on the ignition, and then I can use the FORScan program to connect to the car. So in the main menu I can see here down below, connect to vehicle. So we can see that the ignition is on, we have an OBD2 connector connected, and the vehicle is not moving, so we can continue. Now we see that it detects the PCM or ECU and also has found the instrument cluster. I don't need a record to be made for this one. So when we want to program the keys, we use one of these functions, the service procedures, and in that service procedure you will see the instrument cluster PATS, passive anti-theft system programming, and we will go for that option. I will press play. Then during this procedure the system needs to be opened for security. In this case FORScan will be arranging that, and for that reason FORScan also needs to be online to get the codes to get access to this combination of instrument cluster and ECU. It will ask us to indicate whether the vehicle is equipped with the keyless push start system, which it isn't, so I will answer no. Our first step is to erase and program keys. Any existing keys that are known in the instrument cluster and the ECU will be erased. And this is the part where the system indicates that it will need in codes, and those are the codes that are required to be granted access to the secure parts of the system. It will now ask me if 2 keys are available, and it means are there 2 unique keys available. So each key has its own immobilizer chip or transponder chip somewhere at the front here of the keys. So when I present that key, it will check the number. If I follow through this process and would only use 1 key, then it will detect that it's only 1 unique key. If the key was cloned before, so let's assume you had a key extra made, and the person that made you that key gave you a key with the identical number, then you will not be able to go through this step of the process. So what I will do is I will use those 2 keys, but can also use this transponder chip and pretend that it's a key, because the ignition is via the switch and there's nothing checking the key blade. So we now have security access, and this is the process that we need to follow. We need to turn off the ignition and then wait 10 seconds. And while we're waiting, I can show you that we need to then cycle the ignition from off to run for at least 3 seconds, and then repeat that process for every key that we want to program. So I will program this key first. Then within 5 seconds I will offer up the second key. And I will offer a third transponder chip. Then I will confirm that at least 2 keys have been programmed. Now it indicates that this step of the procedure has completed successfully, but we need another step in the process. Again, we enter the POTS programming option, but in this case we will need a different function, and that function is called module initialization. Yeah, we will continue. I need to turn off the ignition, which I've done. Then I need to wait for 15 seconds, And in the meantime, I'm offering this third key, or the transponder chip actually, to the antenna coil. Now I can turn on the ignition and confirm that. We will wait for another 15 seconds, which appears to be faster. It says it has been completed. Then I can exit this service procedure. So now we should be done. I can switch off the ignition, and to verify if all keys are recognized, we need to monitor the immobilizer indicator. So it's now on. I'm looking over here. Now it's off. So this key is recognized. I will present the second key. Immobilizer light is off, so also this key is recognized. And I will present the transponder chip. Light is off, so also that transponder chip is recognized. So this ECU currently has 3 keys programmed in the system. In total, you can program 8 keys. Well, this is roughly the process. I can now go back to the main menu and say that I want to disconnect from the car. And we are now disconnected. In this case, I bypassed the need to have a key blade that was cut for the ignition. In your case, if you want to have additional keys, then of course you will need to have those keys cut to match the ignition lock. But other than that, the procedure is exactly the same. So you can mix ECUs, instrument clusters, original keys, etc. If you have any questions or remarks, then please leave them in the comment section below. Consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching MX5 Info, and until next time.